Breaking news today. Key events of day 483 of the Russia-Ukraine war. These are the major developments on day 483 of the war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claimed that his country's armed forces were routing Russian troops in the conflict's focal eastern and southern regions. Ukrainian officials claim that Russia launched a major drone attack on Kyiv and other cities, with air defense systems destroying 28 of 30 Iranian-made Shahed drones. €1.2 billion, $1.3 billion, in damage, according to Ukraine's Environment Minister Ruslan Strilets, who also expressed concern that mines uncovered by the flooding could wash onto the shores of other European countries. The dam at Novokakhovka collapsed last week. Ukrainian presidential aide Andriy Yermak claimed that Russian forces had shelled rescue workers cleaning up flood debris in Kherson, wounding 8 and killing 1. One woman was killed and 4 others were injured in a drone attack by the Ukrainian government, according to Russian-appointed authorities in the occupied town of Novokakhovka. According to the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, EU Military Assistance Mission for Ukraine, EUMAM, will train 30,000 Ukrainian soldiers this year. According to RIA Novosti, a Russian court sentenced Denis Mariga to 16 years in prison for participating in the Aider battalion in Ukraine. Aider was one of dozens of volunteer battalions that formed in Ukraine after separatist republics were declared in the east by groups backed by Russia in 2014. The Ukrainian military eventually incorporated them. The Russian government views Aider as a terrorist organization. Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, responded to NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg's statement that Moscow could not dictate the terms of any deal if the war in Ukraine was frozen. If NATO once again declares that they are against freezing, as they say, the conflict in Ukraine, then they want to fight, Lavrov was quoted as saying by the Russian state news agency TASS. In other words, let them fight. Moscow threatened retaliation if Ukraine attacked Crimea with long-range HIMARS artillery and Storm Shadow missiles, as claimed by Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. In 2014, Russia illegally annexed the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz urged Beijing not to supply Russia with weapons in relation to the conflict in Ukraine during a high-level meeting in Berlin. According to a senior EU official quoted by Reuters, EU leaders intend to ask China for assistance in ending the conflict in Ukraine next week. The 29th and 30th of June will see a summit of European Union leaders in Brussels. For the next 4 years, the European Union, EU, will provide Ukraine with a financial aid package totaling €50 billion, $55 billion. Dmitry Peskov, a spokesman for the Kremlin, told reporters that Russian President Vladimir Putin and visiting African leaders discussed the importance of maintaining Russian grain supplies to the continent during their meeting in St. Petersburg last week. Given the far-reaching consequences of any nuclear accident, Norway's foreign ministry announced it would set aside 250 million kroner, $23 million, for nuclear safety and security in Ukraine. U.S. envoy Linda Thomas-Greenfield stated in 2022 that the increase in refugees was primarily responsible for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Russian Defense Ministry announced that a serviceman who destroyed a German Leopard tank in Ukraine would receive a 1 million ruble, $11,820, reward. The Danish Defense Ministry has announced a $3.2 billion aid package for Ukraine, including weapons, other military equipment, emergency equipment, and training, totaling 21.9 billion Danish kroner.